All right, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, September 24th, 2021, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. Real quick, just wanted to show you some of the nice key turns we got in the market yesterday, right off the eye levels that we offer our members here at JT Futures. Going back to the day before that, real quick, just to reiterate, beautiful turn right at the top. Beautiful turn right at the bottom, right off two eye levels we had there. But going into yesterday's market, even throughout the overnight here, you can see some really nice turns right off these levels. In fact, we came all the way up right in the middle of the night there, right to an eye level, sold off, and then bounced right off the other eye level that we had down over here. And then going into that morning, you can see a lot of resistance right off the eye level. And then right out of the open, when we started getting that strong bullish push yesterday, we pushed right up, right through this eye level we had up here, pulled back, and then bounced directly off of it, and then pushed up and found resistance right up at the next eye level up here. Pulled back, came up, and then when we broke through that eye level that we had resistance at from the bottom end, we came and then we bounced off of it from the lower end, and then pushed up to another eye level up top. And I believe the high of the day, if we continue to go through here, through the bull push, we got all the way to the high of the day, and within a tick or two came up to the eye level and turned, and then sold off going into the close. Again, and then came down and used the back end of the eye level. We came down and bounced off of it, and then broke through, came up to the back end of it, found resistance, sold off, broke through the next eye level, came up to the back end of it, and then sold off of there. So again, just showing you how well the eye levels that we give our members here work. That in itself is definitely worth a membership here. And we're going to go ahead and move into this morning's market and jump up to our ultra high time frames here to take a look at what the story has to say for us. Going up to our quarterly chart, not much has really changed over here. Go down to our monthly chart. Still not much has changed over here either. Keep in mind that we have one more week and then this monthly candle will close. And like I said, because we did push to a higher high on this new candle, but the RVI did push to a lower high, there is a bit of an argument there. If it closes exactly the way it looks right now, there will be somewhat of an argument of a push higher but then a push lower on RVI for a bearish divergence there. Let's go over to our weekly, and the weekly, there's that bullish divergence we talked about off the lows compared to some of these previous swing lows that never really got a divergence off of them until we actually came down here this week. So we do have that, and then that wick that we talked about is getting even larger now. So if we continue to push here going into the end of today, we'll have this giant wick to the downside, and if we push, we'll even have a nice blue or green bar there. So looking very strong from a weekly perspective. Over to our daily, we talked about how it bounced right off that 75% retracement, which I would argue once we get through that 75, starts to really look like we're just going to go ahead and retrace the whole leg and continue lower. So if they can hold that general area there, that is kind of our last bullish line in the sand if we're looking at a leg to the upside. So we did hold that. I think that you could make an argument if you go all the way back to the swing low back here. We never got a divergence off that low. So if you look here, we got a divergence from this low to this low on RVI here. So from there down to there, got that. So I don't necessarily like using this swing low on RVI now for future divergence setups. So you can see here we then got a divergence across there, and then you can see RVI got another one. So now I kind of like to look from that low going forward rather than going to this one, which was already used for a divergence. So this one back here has not been used, has not created a divergence with anything else until we got here. And I do think that you could make that argument that you do have divergence in comparison with that swing low on RVI that was never really used for any other divergence going into the future until now. So there is that. I'll leave that there. There is that argument. And outside of that, looking right now, don't really have any signs of exhaustion on this push on the daily chart. There's no signs of a bearish divergence off the current highs that we're seeing right now. So things looking pretty strong from this daily perspective. We did manage to get through that major swing low there. So market sold off, came down, bounced right at, what's the low there, 25 quarter, tried to push and then continued selling off. We've gotten through that from the downside now. So that would have been the first area that would have made sense for some type of trouble, and they were easily broke through that yesterday. So we'll have to see what happens this morning. I don't have any clear signs of any bearishness over here. When we go to our 4 hour, that's when we have some resolution up top here, and we do get a bearish divergence from the previous daily high back around 11 a.m. yesterday Pacific time. We got a bearish signal up here, and we're going to talk about this. This kind of jumps down to a number of time frames. So we do have a decent multiple time frame bear signal from about 11 a.m. yesterday. And then interestingly enough, right at 11 a.m. yesterday, we came up to that eye level we talked about and then sold off into the close. So had you have been monitoring your signals around 11 a.m. yesterday Pacific time, you would have noticed that we got a lot of bearish signals, and that could have indicated potential sell-off going into the close, which is exactly what happened. Now looking at the retracements here, you can see that overall the entire push down from the all-time high to the bounce we made back on September 20th, we've come up and just barely breached that 61.8 retracement area, pushing in again to that 70 to 75%. And we did talk about it breaking through that 44.25 low. That could have been a pretty good resistance for the bullish push. So they got through that. They're breaking through the 61. But now we're getting some bearish signals up here on the 4 hour. Down low here, maybe not the clearest bullish divergence back on the 20th. And we talked about this on the 20th or on the 21st, the fact that we did have we did have a 60-minute, a 30-minute, a 10-minute, a 3-minute down here, but we didn't have that 4 hour or that daily. So not the strongest signal, which in a way kind of tells me that that might not be low enough, because we ideally would like to see a nice clear 4 hour daily divergence off lows for some type of larger protracted push. That doesn't mean it has to happen. I'm just saying from a signals perspective, typically when you get the daily and the 4 hour, that's when you can have a much larger push in the market. Just like we had up here on September 3rd or September 4th, we got the daily, the 4 hour, and then all the time frames below that giving us a bearish signal, and they went ahead and sold this off from 45.38 all the way to below 4,300 now for, it looks like, over 250 points. So when we get that daily giving us a nice clear bearish signal and the 4 hours agreeing, we have a much stronger conviction for some type of potential larger move. So I'll just kind of throw that out there. There's a potential, since we don't have a nice clean 4 hour daily down here, that we could come down lower, maybe test it or come just in front of it or just below it, and then get that 4 hour and that daily. Again, it doesn't have to happen. We can just find some support over here, bounce out, and continue pushing. But that's what I'm seeing right now. Let's go back to our 60-minute now. So 60-minute, there's that subsequent bar type divergence that we got over there off the high from yesterday. And right now, let me go back to my 4 hour here just to see. I think that we could make an argument that we do have, at least have this defined area on RVI right here. And it has pushed lower, but the price has pushed higher. So I think there could be an argument there for a 4 hour bullish divergence at the current lows that we're seeing. In fact, it's the overnight low for today. I guess there's a little bit of an argument there. Remember, this is not a closed candle, so it's not official. It's not an official signal. until that candle does close, so we'll have to monitor that. But on the 60-minute here, we did get a closed candle right off this swing low here, but you know something? I'm not a huge fan of it just because we already used this low back here for a divergence up into there. So not necessarily in love with the signal that the DA is currently identifying here. But for now, I guess we could say that there is a little bit of a bullish divergence on the 60-minute as well over here. Especially if we go back to a lot of these previous swing lows all the way down here. There's definitely one or two that haven't been used that we could make an argument from. So we'll keep that in mind, that our 4-hour, our 60-minute is showing some bullishness at the moment off the current overnight low. And we'll jump down to our intermediate time frames and see what they're telling us down here. We'll take a look at the 30-minute and 30-minute pushed up, so not really any divergence. So yeah, a nice clean 30-minute bullish divergence off the current overnight low. And then a nice clean, well, let's scrutinize this a little bit here. Don't think there's as strong of an argument for the 10-minute. You can use this previous structure back here on RVI, but like I said, I'm not a huge fan of doing that. If we already got a divergence here from that low to that low and this low to this low on price, then I'm more interested in looking at the front end of that structure now to compare for divergences going into the future. That's just how I kind of analyze it myself. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong or better than anyone else's, but that's how I do it. And so I would argue that I don't have the strongest 10-minute signal here at the current time. So just to kind of wrap everything up here, we did have, going back to, so all the high time frames still looking pretty strong. When we get to our daily, I think there's an argument for that bullish signal back there, but no signs of exhaustion until we get to the 4-hour. And then from the 4-hour on down, we do have a lot of bearish signals off of that overnight high. So this morning, we're kind of in a situation where if we can hold the overnight low, which currently is 44.1075, if we can hold that right there, it looks like we might end up getting a push to come up and retest that previous daily high where all those bearish signals are. So if we can hold and push up and get through that, then we'll just be back on our merry way, back up to test some of the higher highs here, and maybe even come up to test the all-time high again. If we get through that overnight low, where we had really our only bullish arguments here on this morning, if we get through that, then there is potential that we could get a more protracted sell-off here. Just keep in mind that we have our signals, we have a lot of levels, including the eye levels that you can't see right now on the chart. So if we do get a very clear multiple time frame setup off of a very good level, we're still going to want to play it in the direction that it's indicating. And we're going to have to kind of see what they do over in here. We do have this retracement scheme. We're coming down into that 38% retracement. So remember, the higher time frame signals could still carry through and show bullishness even with a smaller pullback. So we want to keep in mind that if we do get that pullback, there are opportunities to take it long if the signals are all indicating a potential bounce. So this morning, maybe not the clearest picture because we do have kind of two arguments going on right in this tight little range. And we're just going to have to see which one wins. So keep in mind that some mornings we're going to have 4, 5, 6 time frames all showing bearishness maybe. And then over here, maybe only one time showing bullishness. That would give me a much easier time arguing that we're going to get some larger pullback. But this morning, because so many time frames are showing some bullishness down off the overnight low, it makes that much harder to argue. So we're going to have to see if we can hold here. And then even if we pull back, we're going to have to watch those time frames up top to see if they're still showing bullishness. Because I think that we have some relevant levels below us here that very well could hold for a continued push. And we do have that bearish argument off the high. So it is what it is this morning. Not a clear picture for one direction because of the two cases we have here. And so we'll just have to kind of take it as it comes, expecting that if we do get through that overnight or previous daily high, then all the bearish cases are going to be erased. So if they do push up and get through that, that's it for the bears. If they do pull back a little bit more, keep in mind those signals could still continue to show some bullishness, and I would still look for longs if we have the signals. So I will leave it there for our YouTube video, and we'll jump to our members pre-market session right now.